So we're standing here in front of William T. Alexander's Enslaved Burial Ground. William T. Alexander was a noted planter here in Mecklenburg County. He inherited lots of land from his father, Moses Alexander, and he thrived in a time during the antebellum period where cotton was king here in North Carolina and throughout the South. William T. Alexander, that T stands for Tassie, Alexander, was also a noted Presbyterian. He actually was a member of Mallard Creek Presbyterian, which is right down the street. So we're standing here in the University City area, and one of the things about the William T. Alexander Enslaved Burial Ground is that no one knows that it's actually here. Many of Charlotte's enslaved burials are actually hidden in plain sight. So we're actually in an apartment complex, and the apartment complex has graciously decided to maintain and preserve the William T. Alexander Enslaved Burial Ground. However, you can see from the footage here that the burial ground still needs some upkeep. It needs community volunteers who are willing to come and clean off the leaves and recognize the fieldstones and the burials, as well as the lives that were lived. William T. Alexander was a huge plantation owner and owned a number of enslaved human beings. If you decide to come and visit this site, this sacred site, you will find fieldstones with no names except for two. There are two tombstones with the names Solomon and Violet. Solomon and Violet were enslaved human beings who worked and labored under the ownership of William T. Alexander. In total, William T. Alexander owned around 33 enslaved individuals in 1860. And what's really interesting about the enslaved population that W.T. Alexander owned was that two of them were actually fugitives. They were two fugitive females. One was a mulatto and one was an African American woman. Both of them were African American women, but one was black and one was designated in the 1860 slaves schedules as mulatto. So when you come to this cemetery, it is important to recognize not only the history of Charlotte and its connection to slavery, it's also really important to understand that planters like W.T. Alexander were very, very reliant and dependent on enslaved labor, enslaved black labor. And usually planters always had a section of their plantations designated for the burials. The mortality rate of many enslaved individuals was very high in the antebellum period due to the harsh working conditions, due to the weather and the environment, and also the ways in which they were fed sometimes. And so what you see here are probably enslaved individuals who died early in life. In fact, according to some scholars, enslaved children only lived to the age of 5 if they were lucky. So many of the graves here, really, we don't know exactly who their names are or how old they were when they died, but we do know that they were registered in the wills, they were registered in the slave census under William T. Alexander. And so here's a part of Charlotte's history, here's a part of University City area's history connected to the antebellum period. And it's important as we envision a new future together that we take a look at some of the hard realities of our past and try to envision a more humane future together.